Fast swimmers have good rhythm. And while that's true of all strokes, it's especially true of underwater kicking. Because the rates are so high, it's really easy for swimmers to just jam the rate with a lot of stiffness and not a whole lot of smoothness. But the best underwater kickers, especially those that are extending their distances out to 15 meters, have unbelievable rhythm in addition to unbelievable skill and unbelievable rate. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. A lot of discussion around underwater kicking skill is centered around alignment, and it's centered around creating propulsion. But a skill that's equally important is underwater kicking rhythm. How well swimmers can flow through the kick in order to create good foot speed over a big range of motion and do that with as much relaxation as possible. And by doing that, it allows them to maintain those skills out to 15 meters on the first wall, and then maintain those skills out to 15 meters for each and every wall that follows. It's not about being able to create speed for 2 or 3 kicks off the first wall. It's about being able to create a ton of speed and sustain that speed. Let's take a look at how to make that happen. We're going to discuss why rhythm is so important. We're going to discuss what rhythm is. We're going to check out what it looks like. We're going to talk about why it's difficult to develop rhythm, and then we're going to get into solutions that solve these problems. And we'll wrap it all up with some effective sets to get you started in terms of developing this critical skill. Why does rhythm matter underwater? Well, swimmers go fast by undulating, and the rhythm of the undulation is critical. If it's smooth, they're going to go fast. If it's herky-jerky, they're going to go slow. The wave of undulation needs to travel down the body. It needs to get bigger. It needs to get faster. And without rhythm, neither is going to be possible. If it's jerky, that wave is basically just going to stop. It's never even going to make it down to the feet. It's not going to get bigger in amplitude because the energy of that wave is just going to stop, and that's going to make it difficult for swimmers to move through a big range of motion. And of course, if the wave stops, if the wave slows down, that's going to prevent swimmers from executing their skills at a really high rate. So swimmers want to be able to kick underwater with rhythm so that the wave, which starts up top, ends down low, can pass through the entire body smoothly, and it can get bigger and faster as it goes so that we get that really big whipping action when the feet finally interact with the water, and that is what allows swimmers to create a ton of speed underwater. And so if swimmers want to go fast underwater, they've got to have good rhythm. So what is underwater kicking rhythm? Well, it's a smooth, accelerating undulation. So it's a flow like a ribbon that starts small, ends big, starts slow, ends fast. And if swimmers can execute that, they can find a way to make that happen, they're going to swim with rhythm. It's not just enough to end bigger than it starts or end faster than it starts. It has to flow as it reaches that point. And so you don't want to see rapid increases in size. It should be progressive. There shouldn't be an absence of increase in size. The wave should get bigger and the speed should increase smoothly rather than rapidly. And of course, you definitely don't want no increase in speed. If there's no increase in the wave, then swimmers aren't going to be able to snap that kick through and create a lot of propulsion. And rhythm isn't just what happens within a single kick, it's what happens from kick to kick. And each wave of undulation should roll and flow right into the next, and there should be a smooth transition from kick to kick. It shouldn't be a kick, recover, kick, recover. It should all be one part of the same process, and the smoother everything happens, the faster swimmers are going to be able to go underwater. So if we watch here, you watch his hands, that wave is pretty small, it's pretty tight, it's not really aggressive, but then if you watch down to his feet, there's a big wave, it's moving fast, and the feet are moving fast. And so as a result, that wave's going to get bigger as it flows through. The hands aren't moving much, the chest is moving more, the hips are moving more, the knees are moving more, and the feet are really moving through a big range of motion. And if you watch from a speed standpoint, you'll see that the feet are moving faster than the hands and everything just flows through, more speed, more amplitude as he moves through the kicks. And we'll see the same thing here on the stomach, relatively tight up top, really big on the bottom, and getting faster as the wave goes through. And just as importantly, it's smooth. And just as importantly, it's smooth. It's not a jerky kick, it's a fluid motion that just travels down the body. And that is what allows for the speed to happen. That's the rhythm. It's the smooth transition from movement to movement. There's no jerkiness. It's just a patient, progressive wave that travels down the body. So what's the challenge with improving underwater rhythm? Well, the first major issue is how do you actually explain how to have rhythm? It's about the whole movement rather than one isolated component. So there's not one single thing that swimmers need to think about in order to execute rhythm really well. They have to do everything in an interrelated way all at the same time and make it all work together. And so that's a much bigger challenge than just focusing on the position of the foot, for instance. It also happens fast. Swimmers are kicking 2 to 3 times a second, and so that means that things have to happen in the right way at the right time, really, really fast. And so swimmers try to slow it down, think about it a little bit. They're just not going to have time to make a change. Swimmers also need to learn the skills that interfere with effective rhythm before they can master their rhythm. So if they don't have stability at the top of their kicking, the hands are just moving all over the place, well, it's going to be really difficult to start that wave of undulation and certainly start it with good rhythm. They also have to be able to kick well in both directions, and if they can't, they're really going to struggle to create speed as well. If they're good with the down kick, but the up kick is slow or it's just not fluid, well, that's going to make it much more difficult to maintain a sense of overall rhythm. And these are two skills that a lot of swimmers struggle with, and until they address these, it's going to be difficult for them to swim with great rhythm underwater because they lack the foundational skills to make it happen. When it comes to solutions, we have to find strategies that put swimmers in place so that they can feel the effective rhythm. If they can feel it, they can start to control it, they can start to manage it, they can start to manipulate it, and that is ultimately what we're looking for. At the same time, we need to make sure that they've got those fundamental skills in place so that when they start to put everything together, when they start to let everything flow, they've got the ability to make that happen as opposed to getting tripped up because they can never start the undulation in the first place, or they can't kick effectively in both directions in order to maintain that rhythm, in order to maintain an effective undulation. And again, those skills are going to be learned much more easily if we can put swimmers in positions where they can feel those skills, and once they can feel it, they can start to execute on it. So the first key skill is creating stability with the upper body. If swimmers aren't stable, they can't start an effective wave of undulation. There's no rhythm if there's no wave. So this is the starting point. This is the most important skill that swimmers need to learn in order to be able to generate undulation and then to undulate effectively. And so there's 3 good options that I like, kind of a progression that can be really useful for helping swimmers feel what it's like to create stability at the top of their body. First up is wall kick, where they just hold the wall and all they're doing is dolphin kicking from that position, but because the hands are locked in, they have to figure out how to undulate without moving the upper body. Then you can progress to vertical kicking holding an object, say a buoy, and they're going to be vertical kicking in streamline, and the goal is to not let that buoy move. Again, they're creating stability, but they're keeping the upper body moving in order to stay afloat. Next, you can have them take the same idea, hold a paddle, hold a fin, go under the water, do underwater kicking, but don't let that fin move, don't let that paddle move. Again, we're giving them an external goal, but we're doing it with actual underwater kicking, and we're helping them learn how to create forward movement without moving the upper body by keeping that stable. By doing that, they learn how to create undulation from their upper body. Now, once they get the hang of it, they can definitely start to move the upper body more, because once they've figured out how to create stability, they can undulate more effectively from that position, and that can involve some upper body movement. That's not a problem, provided it's controlled and they've learned to create stability first. This is wall kick. Simple enough. All swimmers are doing is keeping the upper body locked in and dolphin kicking around that. So really simple way to start helping swimmers understand and learn to execute this skill. After that, you can move to a vertical kicking holding an object that's light, and the goal here is to keep that buoy as stable as possible. So swimmers have to figure out how they can control the upper body and then still undulate in order to stay afloat. So a really simple way to help them feel that stability and help them feel that control. And once they get the hang of that, you can have them hold a fin, you can have them hold a paddle, and the goal is to try to keep that paddle, keep that fin absolutely still. And of course, once they get the hang of that, they can move the upper body a little bit more if that allows for a more effective kick. The key is that they get stability first, learn how to create that wave of undulation, and then they can open things up. Next up, they need to start working the up kick. Many swimmers struggle with effectively recovering the legs back behind the body. If they can't do so quickly, they can't maintain the wave. And if they can't do so well, they can't maintain the wave either. It's either going to slow down, they're going to miss it, or they're going to lose it because they have to recover the legs in a way that doesn't necessarily involve undulation. So effective kick needs to be fast and it needs to come up straight so that it can set up and snap back down. And so if swimmers can't do that well, they're going to be in trouble. So we got to help them learn to work the up kick as well. Two options here. The first is just doing a lot of kicking on the back. That's going to emphasize the up kick. That's going to emphasize the muscles on the back of the leg, help condition them to execute the kick well. That can be done on the surface to get more reps, to get more practice, or it can be done during underwater kicking on the back as well. When it comes to conditioning the legs, I find that the surface kicking tends to be more useful. More in terms of developing the skill of the kick, you can have swimmers vertical kick and then move forward in the water. That's going to force them to kick well behind their body, or else they're not going to move forward. So they have to really use the up kick, and it's very easy for them to see whether they're moving forward or backwards or not. And if they're moving forwards, they're on the right track. If not, it's time to reevaluate and pick a different solution. Here it is in action. You can see he's moving forward, and you can see that the feet are moving fast behind the body, and you can see that the feet are actually well behind the body as well. And so he's using an effective range of motion. He's doing it fast, and that's allowing him to move forwards. If he was completely stationary, he's not getting the job done. And because he's moving forwards, he knows that what he's doing is working, and he can continue to reinforce that skill. Now it's time to develop some rhythm. And one of my favorite strategies is one-leg dolphin kick. It can be done with a streamline. It can be done with a streamline and a snorkel. It can be done with a kickboard. It can be done with a kickboard and a snorkel. Now it works because when there's only one leg, swimmers have to undulate. They have to undulate effectively, and they have to let the wave travel down the body, or else they're just not going to go anywhere. If they just kick from the knees, they just bend from the knees, they're not going to go forward in the water. And so they get instant feedback that nothing is working. So if they're moving their legs and nothing is happening, they just start trying to figure out what they need to do in order to make that happen. And so yes, it is a little bit of trial by fire, but sooner than later, they start to figure things out. They start to make it more effective, and that's when they start to develop that rhythm. And of course, once they go back to two-legged kick, it's a whole lot easier to make that happen. So if they can learn to undulate well, undulate effectively with one leg, they're almost always going to be able to make it happen with two legs. And at first, it can be a real challenge. That's okay. But when they get better at it, then they really start to get things to click. And when done in conjunction with all the other underwater kicking skills that you can work on, when they've got rhythm layered in on top of that, they're going to be a whole lot faster, a whole lot more efficient, and that means they're going to be able to execute underwater kicks better in their races. So we'll take a look at the different versions here, and as you can see, he's got that wave of undulation. He's got to make that happen, and you can see it travel down to the foot, and he's got a nice big foot kicking action. When he's got the snorkel on, he doesn't have to worry about breathing. Streamline allows him to keep everything tight and focus on the same positions that he'll be using when kicking underwater. So here's the same thing, just without a snorkel, and so you can use it to challenge their breathing, or you can just use it to challenge the same position and have them execute the breath and then get right back into the rhythm. By disrupting the rhythm a little bit, it can challenge them to reestablish the rhythm every time, which can be a useful strategy as well. So if you don't want them to have the snorkel, you want them to be challenged by their breathing a little bit, it's the same basic idea, except now they don't have access to air all the time like they do with a snorkel. So by using a kickboard, we're going to have a little bit more stability in the upper body, and that can be useful for generating the rhythm because, again, like with the wall kick, we've got something strong to hold on to. That can help them learn how to flow with it. So we've got the same basic idea, except with the kickboard, now we've got a little bit more stability. He's got his snorkel back on, so he doesn't have to worry about breathing. Again, you can see the wave travels down, and he's got a nice solid kicking action happening at the end. This version, no snorkel, and so again, you can have them keep the head down if you want. You can actually have them keep the head up. That's going to encourage him to learn how to kick more effectively, hold more water, because he's got to try to lift the hips up a little bit. So the same basic idea, a little bit different position, a little bit different impact. And the other aspect that using all of these different variations can help with is just by doing it in many variations, they can get better at any one variation. So variety can be really useful for facilitating learning as well. And of course, if we're going to help swimmers take it to the next level, we have to train these skills. Whether it's stability, whether it's the up kick, or whether it's rhythm, we've got to work these skills in order to help swimmers really develop the skills and the fitness to sustain those skills when it matters. So Ask for Performance is going to get them to do things at a higher level. It's going to get them to change. You can ask for speed, so you can ask them to go faster, you can ask them to build, you can ask them to descend things. You can also change the kick rates. So maybe let them do it at slower rates, but then they have to pick up the kick rate in order to execute it faster and faster speeds, which means they have to swim better and better and better. Another challenge you can do is to resist the feet, put drag socks on their feet, put shoes on their feet, and then make them do the same skills. That's going to make it a lot harder for them to execute well. And if they try to fake it, they try to just bend from the knees, especially with a one-legged kick, they're not going to be able to go anywhere. And it's going to be even more obvious that they're not being effective. And so they've got to use that undulation. They've got to use that wave, and that's going to make it even better. And of course, we're developing the strength of the kick by resisting the feet. And so when they take that gear off, they're going to be much better at executing at high levels and sustaining those high levels, which is what we really want. You can also resist the body, so pulley systems where they're lifting the weights. You can wear parachutes. You can do tombstone kicks, so they're kicking against the resistance. Those are all ways that are going to help swimmers feel the resistance on their feet, learn how to hold more water with the feet, and that's going to further help them learn to execute those skills at a high level, all while training at a higher level too. So more skill, more fitness, all at the same time, which is exactly what we want and what they need in order to swim faster underwater in their races. So this set is more about setting up the skill. They're going to go 4 rounds through. They're going to go 6 times 10 on, 20 off vertical dolphin kick. The odds are streamline, holding an object, working on stability. The evens are moving forward, working on the up kick. Then they're going to go 225 single leg dolphin kicking, 12.5 left leg, 12.5 right leg. Number 1 is solid. Number 2 is strong. Then they're going to go 225s, 15 meters underwater to start. Number 1 solid. Number 2 strong. And on the single leg kick, the odds are going to be with a kickboard and a snorkel. The evens are going to be just with a snorkel when they're in streamline. So they've got to execute that kick in 2 different positions. Is one better than the other? Not necessarily, but the more situations they can be good in, the more effective they're going to be at that skill. So we set them up with stability. We work the up kick, then we let them play with the rhythm, and then they take that into the underwater kicking, which is the ultimate skill that they need to do. So we're giving them more practice, working on the foundational skills, working on the targeted skill, and then trying to apply that skill in a race-relevant context. This is a little bit more of an endurance set, get a little bit more volume in. They're going to go 3 rounds through, 350 single leg dolphin kick, descend 1 to 3 to strong, alternate leg by 25. Then they're going to go 275s freestyle, 6 dolphin kicks each wall. Each wall is stronger, and number 2 is faster than number 1. Then they're going to go 3 more 50 single leg dolphin kick, descend 1 to 3 to strong. Now they're going to alternate leg by 12.5. Then they're going to go 275, 6 kicks each wall. Each wall is stronger again. Again, number 2 is faster than number 1. So the goal here is to help swimmers learn how to create more and more speed with the single leg dolphin kick. And the more effective they can be, the better the rhythm they can have as they do that, the more skilled they're going to be. And each time they're getting the chance to take what they learn, apply that, maintain that same rhythm, and then sustain that each 75. The second one's better than the first one, and each wall gets stronger, so that way they can learn to maintain the rhythm under a little bit of pressure. So we use the single leg kick to set up the skills, and then they try to execute those skills while they're actually swimming. Last set, a little bit more of a speed set. They're going to go 2 rounds through. They're going to go 10 seconds wall kick with drag socks, fast. Now we're focusing on the stability, helping them lock that in. Then they're going 2 12.5 single leg kick with a kickboard and drag socks. Those are fast. So the kickboard is helping them with a little bit more stability. Then they're going back to 10 seconds wall kick with socks again. And then they're going 2 12.5s single leg kick without the kickboard, just the drag socks. Now they're going to have to manage that rhythm, that undulation without the stability. Then they're going 2 12.5s underwater with drag socks, really working those skills, maintaining the rhythm, and then they're letting it rip with a 25 fast with a 12.5 underwater. The second half, they're going to do the same thing, except instead of using drag socks, they're going to use a parachute to help them feel more pressure on the water with their feet. Same idea, same exact set. They're just going to use different type of resistance to challenge the kick in a different way. So we're setting it up with stability. We're letting them play with the rhythm. We're challenging that again, and then we're letting them go underwater to see what they can make happen. So it's a really effective way to help them learn how to execute really good rhythm at really high speeds and really high intensities. And then once they can do that, the faster they go, the faster they're going to go, and then they can learn to sustain that as well with other types of sets. So a really great way to work on the high end from an intensity standpoint and from a speed standpoint. If you want to learn more about how to develop underwater kicking stability, check out the video below. If you want to learn more about how to develop the up kick, check out the video to the left.